Okay. Welcome back to Prisonland Fish. School of wonderful people that we love. This week's episode is called The Old Head, which is as Paul pointed out on our rewatch, double entendre. If you joined us for the rewatch party, we're really grateful to have you with us on this here rewatch extravaganza. It's actually been super cool to connect with the show again. It turns out it's a pretty good show. Also, sorry, I'm Sara.
I'm Paul. I'm also glad you're here. And if there's anyone, listening apart from our mothers, but also we're glad that they're listening if they are. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom. So our guest today is another one of the massively underused and totally overqualified for only 4 episodes actors who came through our show.
And died gruesome deaths, which is, more often than not how people exited our show.
But who then went on to massive success.
And actually had massive success before our show. Well, okay, we've over-teased this.
This.
So let's just say it's Jessalyn Gilsig, folks,
Yay!
who played Lisa Ricks, the ill-fated ex of Lincoln Burrows, the baby mother to the troubled Lincoln Burrows Jr., also known as LJ. And we're really looking forward to chatting with her today. We have all sorts of questions, and we're really looking forward to her insights.
But first, our Adelstein index. The Old Head aired. The Old Head first aired on October 24th, 2005. And that's actually 21 days, 3 weeks since the previous episode aired. We believe that that's due to the World Series playoff games, which aired on Fox.
You can just say World Series. Okay.
Sorry, to the World Series. It wasn't the playoff games, though, too? It wasn't the pennant games?
There's playoff games, and then there's World Series. Yeah, maybe both. So both. Okay.
I mean, because it's 3 weeks, right? And the series is only like a week and a half, depending on...
7 games, depending on the week. Yes. Okay. I'm just being a jerk for no reason.
No, I'm just not very good at sports, and you know that.
And I'm feeling, for some reason, the need to be a mansplainer. Go on.
So this episode was written by Monica Macer and directed by Jace Alexander.
The episode drew 10.12 million viewers, which is the highest of the season since premiere night. Maybe there was lots of advertising during the World Series games. We don't know if that happened. Maybe people really just missed it. The lead into the show was a rerun of the previous episode, and we were up against Monday Night Football on ABC. Falcons beat the Jets 27-24. 2.5 Men on CBS in Las Vegas on NBC.
Okay, the plot recap. And again, we just rewatched this. It's a really, really good one. Michael needs to dig in the guard's room for the escape plan. So Westmoreland starts a fire in said guard room. Michael is then called to repair the room with PI, giving him and the team a chance to dig. A murder attempt on Veronica and Nick results in her neighbor's death. R.I.P. Lucas. And Kellerman kills LJ's mom and stepdad in an attempt to frame LJ for it.
Okay.
It is also revealed.
LJ's mom, but okay. Go on.
Oh, you're right about that. Yeah, it went on your death toll, though. Sorry for that. Okay, so it's also revealed that the vice president of the U.S. is the person to whom Kellerman is reporting.
Oof, that is a lot. Yeah. And this doesn't even take into account, which is one of the great things that Prison Break does, is that anything that it says here, Westmoreland starts a fire in the room. Is it Westmoreland starts a fire in the room because Bella kills his cat? Bella kills his cat because he won't turn in
whoever killed Bob.
That killed Bob. Everything has this pressure on it. Michael's called in to dig the repair room, but they don't want Teabag in there, but Teabag's wheedled himself in. So every one of these things is kind of fraught and juicy. Continuing on with the Adelstein Index. In pop culture, the World Series of Baseball, as we mentioned, had been going on. And on October 26th, the Chicago White Sox, where we were shooting, won the World Series for the first time since 1917. Sweeping the Houston Astros, who later became cheaters. The third game in the series, incidentally, became the longest World Series game in history at 5 hours and 41 minutes.
Woof.
Elsewhere,
is that the one you were at, by the way?
No, I was not at the super long one. Okay. I was at the rainy one. I don't think it was the long one. Maybe there was a rain delay. I don't remember. Meanwhile, in other parts of pop culture, Michael Connelly's crime novel, The Lincoln Lawyer, was #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. And 6 years later, it would become a feature film starring Matthew McConaughey. and is currently a series on Netflix, or
I think
certainly
so.
was. Yes.
To locate us a little bit in global history, world events, renowned civil rights activist Rosa Parks died the day the show aired at the age of 92. And a few days earlier, the trial of Saddam Hussein began for crimes against humanity. This is your moment in 2005.
Yes. Okay, big things going on in the world, and baseball, and smaller things in TV. And now, come on, join us for our rewatch party. Let's get into it. Oh, this guy's back.
Lucas. Lucas is a feminist icon. He's like, I see a woman in trouble and I step in.
Ally.
He's an ally.
His character's name was Ally Lucas.
Ally Lucas. He also has a huge crush on Veronica.
Yeah.
I have a whole backstory in my head. Oh, no. Oh, I have a real bad feeling.
Oh, no. I
about
think
this.
maybe Lucas is going to pick one for the team.
Oh, did we write up Lucas just to, like...
Oh, Lucas!
Oh.
Horrible.
We loved you, Lucas.
The wrong lesson about allyship. How does one go about killing a cat? I don't want to know.
Do you know, I have a story that I can tell you about my husband having to kill a cat to save the lives of some children, and it's remarkably difficult.
Okay.
I'll tell you later.
Let's make a note of the dead cat story. They just keep ratcheting up the pressure, like as if the ticking clock of an execution isn't enough. They keep grinding on it.
We will be right back to talk about the episode. All right, welcome back, fishes. Well, let's bring Jessalyn into our conversation here. You know her from her giant career. I mean, highlights, Boston Public, Friday Night Lights, Glee, Vikings, etc. Hi.
Hi, Jessalyn. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're so glad to have you here. We've really been enjoying your work, watching these episodes, and you have what we often, Sarah and I have talked about quite a bit, which is very difficult role of the guest star who has to come in and be a three-dimensional person connected to all the lead characters with tons and tons of backstory that no one has probably explained, big emotional scenes that you don't have time for, where you're shot last while everybody else wants to go home, and they're covering the leads and just being like, yeah, knock this out of the park 15 more times so we can get coverage, and then maybe we'll do yours after lunch. And you just kill it. You just absolutely kill it.
It's really beautiful work.
Yeah.
That's so generous. Thank you, guys. But yes, that totally encapsulates the entire experience without a doubt. Definitely. Yeah.
And
definitely.
you were also, I mean, similarly, I think in some ways to Paul and I, you were in some ways on a different show, which is to say, you know, you and Paul are on an outside of the prison, very, just tonally different. You're not working with like basically the first 5 people on the call sheet. And similarly, like I was on a 2-person, more or less like romantic drama in the infirmary.
Yeah.
And we're on a thriller. And
yeah, you guys are on like a political thriller.
Like a political thriller, right?
Right.
Although you came to the prison, you had some prison scenes, yeah.
I always got the feeling that everybody didn't want to be shooting my scenes. They all wanted to be back at the prison with the guys doing. That was I always felt like for the crew and for the company, and that was the most exhilarating part of the show, which it was in the sense because it was so original, this idea of setting it in the prison and then building this cast. And it was such a great concept that I always sort of got the feeling that that's sort of where everybody wanted to be, and that there was something kind of, we've got to do these so we can get back to prison.
I remember that. I remember that feeling.
Do you?
Yes.
Like that was the cool spot. The prison was cool.
I mean, there was, and also you also had the disadvantage, I just think, from a film crew thing of like, you're always in a house, like out in the western suburbs, and like it was hard to like get
That's
there.
Right. Don't touch anything. Don't sit down. Time. Tail lights at 10. Coming around the island of the kitchen. Yeah. Again. Yeah.
And yet, from an audience perspective, those scenes are such a breath of fresh air. Yeah, I mean, they're so vital to go, oh, let's get out of the prison for a second. You know, it's.
Well, I also thought that the LJ character was great. I thought he did such an amazing job.
Really did.
And talk about somebody who could embody so much emotion and a sort of quiet reflection. And I mean, this kid had the world on his shoulders and he was so alone. And I just thought he gave an exceptional performance every time I worked with him.
How was it working with Marshall? Because I mean, you were coming from a career and he was, I think, relatively new, right? I mean, that can be an interesting, I feel like as women, often we play moms and you're sort of bringing someone into the business in a way. Like how was that for you guys?
He was phenomenal. I mean, I thought that kind of like you guys are describing, when somebody is bringing something that's so honest and so heartfelt, and I never felt like he was really generating anything. It felt like he sort of really just walked in this headspace. I don't know what he was pulling on, but it makes your job so much easier, as you're suggesting, because I just felt compelled to take care of him. And I just felt compelled to protect him. And then, as you guys both know, like, then you're not acting anymore. You're just in the moment, taking care of each other. And he was lovely and he was excited to be there. And I mean, I think I'm really lucky in all the ways that you set up what the role was, that he was so present in all of our scenes and so willing to sort of engage with me. So I think it kind of elevated what could have been a kind of just basic mom-kid relationship. I feel like I like the idea that they had been alone together for a long time, and that she was in this new relationship, but that they had this bond, they had this sort of secret language, and she was protective of that, but obviously she was still she saw this new relationship as some source of stability for them. She was doing that for him. And so I think all that sort of complexity, he was available for that. At least it felt like he was. And so he made it, from an acting standpoint, I think he made it really easy.
How did you, let's take a step back. How did you come to the role? Do you remember? Was it an audition? Was it an offer?
No, I auditioned for your role, Sarah.
Oh, did you?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I auditioned for your role.
It never occurred to me.
Yeah, and then
you'd have been great.
Oh,
you'd have been great.
I think we all know that's not true. You were brilliant. It was funny. So I auditioned for that role, and then I got the call saying no, but how about the ex-wife? And I sort of feel like it launched my ex-wife journey, which I've been on and off screen for years.
What is it that they say about women? We go from playing the girlfriend to the wife to the mother to the senator.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like you have
that's amazing.
All of them.
Yeah, I really live in the land of ex-wife. Like I'm either the mistress and now I'm the ex-wife. But I'm never really the mom. I'm never the married mom or the nice wife. I'm not the second wife. I'm always the first wife.
Is that because you're a blonde? Like that might be the difference between being a blonde and a brunette. As the brunette, I'm the long-suffering wife. The husband is dying or the whatever.
I'm never the one with the cardigan, like, where have you been? I'm not that.
Yeah, no. And I'm never the one who he leaves his wife for. That's not my.
That's me.
People are like, you smell like stability to me, and I'm like, okay.
I mean, he won't leave her for me, but he'll definitely sleep with me.
Are you like the crazy first one? Are you like it was the crazy youth? We were crazy kids, and I mean that's what the prison break one was.
Yeah, I used to be more like that. Like, yeah, definitely with a past. But now I'm like the crazy, just crazy. I don't know. The blonde, I think, is a good theory. The other is, I think, which again, I feel like, Sarah, you can relate to, is like, I just refuse to just be dismissed. So I will always try to leave a little something behind to keep you thinking. And that usually becomes sort of, wait a second, she has an agenda and a life goal that is beyond what he's interested in. And I just try to sort of leave that in the room and see if they can do something with that, or if the audience might enjoy that.
Well, part of, I think, what we're joking about here is, especially in the early 2000s, the limitations. Like there are these boxes, right? And the idea that you can be a fully fledged character and somebody with, goals and dreams and hopes. I think one of the things that I was relieved to see is that they didn't turn her into a hot mess. Oh, she's a single mom. Oh, she's got to be a disaster. Oh, she's, you have a sense of her as somebody who is put together, cares for her son, has a plan, and has a spine.
The way that I relate to it is kind of what I said, which is I feel like when you're a single parent, you have this bond with your child that whoever else comes in, you're just, in a way, you're sort of always in negotiation with this connection that you have. And so I feel like in a way they could continue alone, just the two of them. But then there's just so much, she feels very vulnerable. Maybe she's not setting him up as effectively as she could if she brings in this partner who can give them financial security, who maybe can give them emotional security, that can give LJ more of a possibility of being able to be a kid and not having to grow up too fast. And so I think she's really trying, but I think either choice she makes is going to have a cost, and she's trying to communicate that with him.
And as you've moved through the subsequent roles, right? Glee, Vikings, etc. I didn't mean to be reductive. I just mean like the etc. is like, well, your resume is long and I'm never gonna get through it all. But like, do you see, as this was 2005, do you feel like the roles are getting more nuanced, more creative? I mean, for instance, like I was thinking about even just the difference of being on a show run by somebody like Ryan Murphy, who is going to have a different relationship to masculinity and therefore a different relationship to femininity as well.
That's a really good point. Ryan's a great example of somebody who, I have a Glee story that I think really epitomizes Ryan. So when he called me one day and he said, I've written this pilot and we're looking for somebody to play the wife, and I think you could do it. And I said, great. Oh my gosh, amazing. Thank you so much. And almost immediately my reps called me and said, listen, we know Ryan offered you this role, but we've already told him you're too old and you can't sing.
Wow. Thank you for representing me with such care and deliberation.
And I was like, what? And they said, yeah. And he doesn't realize how old you are. You're so much older than Matthew Morrison. He has no idea. You have to call and tell him how old you are. I'm not kidding, guys.
Please tell me these are now your ex-agents.
Yeah.
Okay,
so good. So they said, I'm casting call. Everybody called me. You have to tell Ryan how old you are. You're so much older than Matthew Moore. He doesn't know how old. They kept telling me you're so old. So I call Ryan.
Sorry, fuck all of them.
I know. And I called Ryan and I said, listen, Ryan, I'm so flattered. I'd love to obviously do
You said I'm so old.
But I'm so old. I mean, I'm really old, Ryan. I'm older than Matthew Morrison. And he said, this is what I know. You're somewhere between 30 and death. And that's what I need for this part.
Amazing.
That is really, really bad. I don't know Ryan Murphy, but I really love him in this.
Right? So I am older than Matthew Morrison. And
so
what?
And what Ryan said to me also, which I loved, he said, the audience will believe anything you tell them.
That's right.
They'll go with you. If you believe it, they believe it. And also, I don't, I don't.
Also, you look amazing.
Would care if the woman was older than the man in the relationship. Right. In this instance, we were supposed to have been in high school together, but that's neither here nor there. He was so right that, I mean, didn't Sally Field play Tom Hanks's mother?
Yes.
To make the example in the worst possible way. So
I played Max Marriott's mom. We're like 9 years apart.
Horrifying.
It happens all the time.
So disturbing. So yeah, to your point, I definitely think it goes, we know this, that it goes showrunner by showrunner. I think that I always thought that in a way, even though I started out thinking like all of us that we wanted film careers, I actually think I really benefited from ending up in TV because I feel like in TV, I had the possibility to kind of advocate for my character. You have more control than people realize. You know, when I did Nip Tuck, it was supposed to be one episode. But and I just loved this character, and I just thought that's the way she's written. This isn't who she is. She's more than this. And I wanted to make that case. And in that case, I had a director that I'd worked with before, Elodie Keene, and she was really sort of, you know, it's nothing that you have to verbalize. It's nothing that you don't go up to a director and say, I think my character is more interesting than the way you guys think she is. You just have to, basically you get what, 2 to 6 takes. And then no matter what you do, they're going to move on. So you can kind of lay a lot of stuff in and say, I'm not going to let this woman be forgotten. And I feel like that sort of has always been my approach, is to kind of advocate. I never really go to a producer and ask for anything. I just make the case for my character in my takes, always.
On the screen.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, and I imagine because so many of, I used to say that a leading man is someone with a full dramaturgical coherent life, and a leading woman is the person who gets him from A to B. And that's the way it was forever, and I'm sure like me, you've read scripts and gone, you're asking me to do something completely nonsensical because you need his journey to make sense.
Right.
And I think part of the gift of really great actors is you go, okay, I'm going to actually create a coherence where there isn't necessarily one, or I'm going to create a full fleshed out life where there's something that's two-dimensional. And so often then I think, and Paul and I have both been directing a bit, and you see this in the edit, you go, holy smoke, something's going on here.
Right.
And I think good directors then ping upstairs and go, hey, do yourself a favor, watch her dailies. She can do anything that you throw at her. And that becomes gold because they know, hey, we've got to get some stakes up there. Go give them to Jessalyn. That's very cool.
As a woman, when I was on Vikings, that was a perfect example of, I was just a Canadian hire. They just needed a Canadian passport. And we would shoot 5 cameras, and I was Gabriel Byrne's wife, and I had no lines. But I knew that I was on camera. And I thought, okay, I'm going to work on listening. I feel like I'm going to take this opportunity to work on listening on camera. And I would sort of look around the room, and I would assess the different characters, and I would generate ideas about them and thoughts. And then I always want to sleep with somebody. I think you always have to have sex in the room, right? So then I decide who I want to, because that's why we're watching anyway. So I always bring sex in. And then I have to say, Gabriel was amazing, because Gabriel said to me one day, he said, I don't think I do anything without your permission. So whenever I speak, I'm going to check with you first. So I had no lines, but he would throw his look to me. So they would have to cut to me.
Cut to you. Yep.
Can you imagine? So I get a call from the editor one day, and she says, what are you thinking in this scene? And I said, oh, well, I was thinking that my husband's not long for this world, and I'm trying to figure out who I'm going to attach to get for my survival. And she said, I'm going to cut to that.
That's beautiful.
And that set me up for the rest of my life on that show. There's no way that anybody ever intended my character to survive Gabriel's, I won't give it away, but what happens to Gabriel? Right. Like nobody thought that. But I just thought, well, if I'm going to be living here in Ireland and I'm going to be on set for 16 hours a day and I'm not going to be speaking, it's still an opportunity to act. It's still an opportunity to learn and to grow. And I always think the character is your department. right?
That's right.
Like wardrobe's running wardrobe, camera's running camera, and you have to run your character. And
That's right.
it's not about asking for more. It's not about it's really about delivering, when at all times, and supporting supporting, like you're saying, like the direction that everybody's going, making a meaningful contribution to that. And the thing is, it just makes your day more interesting. Because if you show up on set and you decide, oh God, I only have one line today, or I have nothing to say today, everybody else has interesting things to do today, you're just going to have a terrible day. So you might as well, if you love to be an actor, as Donald Logue, who I'm sure you guys both know, always,
I'm sorry.
oh, he's so great. He was on Vikings as well, but the best thing he ever said to me, he said, any day I'm on a call sheet is a great day.
Yeah. Amen.
That's your
Any day you're a working
You're on the
actor,
call
that's a
sheet.
gift.
That's your chance to do what you love, and to leave them with something, like you guys said, that they can work with. And if they don't want it, that's fine. But at least you did what you love and what you care about.
Boy, were they smart to hire you instead of background person who has never acted before. Like, I got to say, there's something really interesting to me that somebody made the decision to go, can we get a real actor here? First of all, it's Gabriel Byrne. Give him a real actor. And I love that decision from him, because I've been talking, Paul and I have actually both been talking to our friend J. August Richards about, he's written this, he's teaching right now about how to be a series regular. And it's like, you break everybody in the room with you, everybody in the scene with you matters. They have a purpose and you have a relationship to them. And I've seen so many actors act the call sheet, which is like, well, I'm only going to look at number one and number two. And you're like, right, but the person standing next to you supposedly shot your father. I get that they only have one line or maybe no lines, but your relationship to them has to be as deep and complex. Otherwise, you're not telling the truth of the scene. And I love that he looked at you and was like, I'm going to make the decision that you have to co-sign everything, which is why you're silent, because I'm speaking for both of us, which is just, that's a story of two really talented actors elevating everybody around them. That's very cool.
And the other thing that he did was he, in the scene, people probably seen the show. So in the scene where he is killed, he came to me one day and he said, I want to go to the showrunner and ask that he write you into the scene. Because if I die and there's nobody there who cares about me, the audience isn't going to care. Because the only reason it's going to matter is the look on your face.
Yep.
Smart.
Your reaction to his death is what tells the audience what to feel.
It's about relationships.
That's right.
It's not about if you don't have a relationship, it's about the fact that you don't have the relationship. Everything is about connection. And like I said, I actually think everything is about sex, fundamentally. But it's really about wanting people to get together, wanting people to connect, wanting people to find each other. So if you want to go on set and behave as if you have no association with any other character, nobody's going to care about you.
You don't matter to the story, is what you're saying.
You don't matter, and you don't want anything. What do you want? You want connection. You want to be seen. You want to be loved. Like, these are all the things that are driving us. We want to, or we want power, or we want respect, or, and so that all is relational.
Well, as a lead in, it occurred to me, you're our first actress guest. And it made me think about just what a different time it was. So there was a director in the first season who would watch me get wired every time I had to put my mic on, because you had to lift your shirt and do the whatever, and said to me, and the most shocking thing to me about this is that it took me 5 years to realize that it shouldn't have been said, which is a story about power in Hollywood. But he said to me one day, I'm watching because my wife is pregnant and it's been a while since I've seen a hard body. And I sort of didn't respond, because what do you say when a grown man with a career, I'm, 27, like very new in the business. I'm also in a prison surrounded by an entirely male crew, almost,
and cast
500 male extras. And again, I've been asking a lot of questions of our guests about shifting gender and masculinity and things like that in Hollywood, because I think this needs to be a part of the conversation. This show took place in 2005, and that's coming on 20 years ago. Things have changed, sort of, question mark. I don't know if you want to speak to that in any way, and don't feel like you have to, because, we've all been through a lot. But that was not uncommon.
No. Well, first of all, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But
No.
but that's exactly how we've absorbed it. I know. The list of stories that I have is endless.
We all do.
Must be.
I know.
Yeah.
Must be endless.
We just like exactly what you did in that moment. And what were you going to do in that moment? What were you going to do? You have to get the day. You're getting wired. You don't expect it because you're at work, So you think you're in a professional setting where you're being received as a professional. And suddenly this comment comes out that immediately tells you who you are and who you are to this person. And you
Which is
put
nothing.
so much care into getting up that morning, preparing yourself for the day, preparing your work, thinking about this, this profession that I'm sure you're out of town, you're away from your family, you've committed yourself to this show and to this job and to telling this story. And then in that instant, you're immediately told, by the way, you're nothing. You could be anybody. You are just something for me to look at right now.
I own you. Yeah.
And it just takes the floor out from under you, and now you got to walk on set and you got to do your job, the same job that the man is doing across from you, but he hasn't had any of that experience in that day, and he never will.
Without any sense that there's anyone you could even tell. And that, I wonder, is maybe the difference. I still think those things happen on sets, but I do think my hope is, I'm literally, I know I told Paul, I was like, if I talk about this, it's going to be because I want young women listening to know I think it still happens. But there will be someone on that set. First of all, it's the first AD's job, if they overhear something like that, to report. But I think now my hope is not that people won't say those things, because I'm not that naive, but my hope is that there will be people around to go, hey, honey, just so you know, honey, whatever. Sarah, just so you know, I've got this. You don't need to worry about this. I'm going to take care of this. Or I could go to somebody and go, hey, Jessalyn, this just happened. Is this how does this feel to you? And that there's someone else to go, completely wrong.
Yeah.
Let's go have a conversation. I don't know.
I think that I'm hopeful as you are that the culture, that the culture is shifting, that people even just that we're all more, that even men now understand maybe better that it's not appropriate. And I think the redistribution of power and representation is making a big is also changing it. I mean, I would say the only show I can really think of that I didn't endure some kind of harassment was when I worked for Shonda Rhimes.
Interesting.
That's the only time that something wasn't in play on the table where I wasn't feeling sort of reduced, or where I didn't feel like there was an offer or some kind. I feel like that was the only time when I worked for a female showrunner. The big takeaway for me during MeToo, which was, I have to say, actually, I was very surprised by how much it affected me, because I think to what you're describing, which is I realized how much I had endured and never, ever, ever verbalized.
Yeah.
And now it was sort of coming out into the light. And I just felt like, wow, what would it have all been like if I hadn't actually absorbed, like you say, I mean, I very deliberately moved from Canada. I was an actor. I made my way to the States. I paid my way through college. I loved what I did. Like I believed in what I was doing. And then I came out to Hollywood and I was exactly as you experienced, told over and over again that I was just this body to be objectified or to really, that there was a expectation to pay to play. And I lost a lot of jobs because I wouldn't do that.
Oh, you lose so much work.
Yeah, so much work.
So much work. And then you watch the men
opportunity.
that you came up with. You watch their careers go through the ceiling.
Okay, that's
you
the
go,
thing.
Is it me? And then
That's
you go,
the one.
no. Yes, because you can't network with those men because you network with them, they take you to dinner and you're like, fuck, this is not the dinner that it needs to be. I mean, show
Jesus
after show
Christ.
after show after show, I would work with these guys and I would watch them skyrocket.
It's the mentorship. So that I think is changing because that's exactly to your point. I remember being on Boston Public and I remember David Kelly walking over to a fellow actor, good friend of mine, and saying, you should come into the editing room. You should come and see it. And I was never invited into the editing room. I was
you and your
invited
Harvard
to
degree,
a
like not for
lot
nothing.
of dinners, a lot of long, boring dinners. Where I had to hear about how you don't like your wife and nobody understands you and blah, 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 and your career and how great you were. But nobody ever said, you should.
You want to direct. You should edit. You should come in the writer's room.
Not once in my life. Not once. Now it's changing. And now I think it's changing for younger women, where I think women, and you need more women to do that. You need women to mentor women because men are still concerned about the optics. And so, but there are generations of women, including ours. Like I hear a lot of men now being so proud that they're hiring female writers. But those female writers are all under 40. Who's hiring the female writers in their 50s who never ever got those opportunities to be showrunners, to be head writers, to have their it's easy to mentor somebody younger, but in reality, like you're saying, we came up with so many of these guys. We came in just as qualified, just as ready, just as passionate, and we saw them be mentored into producer roles. And they're running huge shows now.
Or to walk off of a hit show and have so many interesting, different, layered, nuanced characters to walk into. I mean, I worked on a show with a friend of mine who walked into a giant career. We had a conversation once and I was like, name one movie you've done in the last 5 years with more than 4 female characters. You're in these shows that they're sausage fests. And that means your resume builds. That means people look and go, oh, he's working. I was like, when people look at me and wonder what's she been doing, the answer is waiting for a part that's worth her skill. Forgive me. But like, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And one of the interesting knock-on effects that I've seen, and I'm sure you have too, of the MeToo movement is, you'll hear from older white male directors like, well, I just can't get a job anymore. And not only is that demonstrably untrue, but what's amazing to me, and I actually said this to someone who's not speaking to me anymore, is if you had spent time in the last 20 years developing meaningful relationships with female creatives, they would be hiring you now.
That's right.
If you knew the women who are now the producing directors and the showrunners and the creators, they would be hiring you. And I know that because I'm on shows created by women who hire older white men. Because sometimes you guys are great at what you do and you got Emmys and it's great and we're happy to have you. If you don't know any of them, there's a mirror. There's a mirror that you can look into.
I always said, before Me Too, I would say I do feel like the film industry is one of the last to kind of people would say, well, it's not like this for me in my job. And I think, well, I don't think anybody's really paying attention to this industry. I mean, it's really the Wild West here. And I think a lot of the fun of the job before this awareness was that there were hot women around and you could make them sleep with you, like you could hire pretty girls and you could make them sit and have dinner with you. And that was one of the perks of the job.
Jessalyn, I'm writing a show for us called The Perks.
Right.
It's going to be a comedy. We're going to sell it to Shonda.
It's really interesting. I mean, I've always felt like as an actor, I think what happens also is then people spend all day looking at you in the edit room, and then they think they know you, and then they think you're in a relationship, and then you're like, I don't even know you. Why do you feel so? There's a lot of, it is definitely complex. And at the same time, like to go back to Sarah's story, sometimes it's just fucking wrong.
And my hope is that what we can start to do, what you said, the step one is inclusion.
Yeah.
Which is not to say that female directors are perfect about all things all the time. Everybody's got a learning curve. But what I'm hoping is that we are starting to raise a generation with slightly less of that misogyny. It feels like it's different. Even having this conversation, in 2005 would have been silly. And like you, I think the journey of the early years of the MeToo movement for most of the women I knew, myself included, was going through like a forensic dive of our history and going, oh my God, I had a female producer to say to me, my career, I just must be lucky. I haven't gone through the same kinds of things I'm hearing about. 2 years later, she's like, oh, Sarah, boy, was I wrong. I didn't even tell my husband when I came home that night because that kind of thing was so commonplace. And also I was in the I have things to do. I can't let this bug me. And so I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but I think as we uncatalog that and unpack it, we are also telling the women coming up, let me just make this real clear. This isn't okay. You can take steps. I will get your back. And I'm hoping that as they then raise the next generation in Hollywood, as the producers, as the writers, as the show creators, as the directors, things, the needle starts to shift.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it already has. I think it's a culture shift. I think it's an awareness. It's like you say, it's having even the language around it. And I think it makes the workplace so much better.
Yeah.
It's so much, everybody can do much better work when they feel safe.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We have to do dangerous work. We've talked about this before here. We've got to do dangerous work feeling safe.
Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll answer some fan questions.
Let's do some fan questions.
Fan questions. Oh, let's do some fan questions. So, Jessalyn, on our IG, we said, hey, we're having Jessalyn. Do you have any questions for her?
This is pretty speculative. But C.E. Brown, with 2 N's, asked, how do you think the relationship would have developed between Lisa and LJ if she'd escaped Hale and Kellerman? Like, do you have an alternate universe in your head of...
I was really surprised by the death. I didn't go into the job knowing that was going to happen. And so I was pretty excited about where everything was going. And yeah, I think, I always just sort of thought that I would reconnect with Dominic's character in some way, that we would get to sort of dive more into that sort of history and that connection, and maybe, how that had dissolved and if there was anything still there and that kind of thing. So I was hoping, to outrun you, Paul.
You're not the only one.
Right, I think it was Danny that killed you.
But I mean, I feel like you gave the order.
Yeah, I was running the show. Sorry, I apologize for that.
I forgive you now.
Okay, thank you.
So super, super grateful to you for this conversation and your candor and honesty and openness about what it's like to walk this path, because I think the only way we make it better is by being honest about where we've come from. We're also very sorry that you died on the show.
Yes.
Paul is sorry that he killed you.
Yes.
Or that he had you killed.
Yes.
We have 2 final questions that we ask all of our guests. The first is, if you were on death row, what would your last meal be?
Okay, this I actually know, and I get a lot of flack for this.
because I've been on death row and.
Well, this happened recently where I was sitting around with friends and we did this, and they were all, talking about what they would have. And I said that I would like a poached egg. I mean, I want it on toast, like a piece of buttered toast. And I got so much flack for it. I mean,
I'm gonna give you some it's very comfort food, I guess. It just reminds me of like staying home sick from school and my mother making me a soft-boiled egg.
I think I was just born an old lady.
I want to know why.
You know, every Halloween, my entire childhood, I wore the exact same costume, and I was an old lady.
Okay.
And I was full in character like the whole time. If you see pictures of me, I mean, I won't even break character for the entire night of Halloween, which is not a fun when you're out with your friends and you're the old lady. But I mean, I was committed. And so I have a feeling it's all related and that I just love a poached egg on toast. And that is because I'm an octogenarian.
And some chamomile tea kind of thing?
Yeah.
Like, is it? Yeah. Sure.
By the way, what that answer tells me is you're not going to be on death row. Like people who want poached eggs for a last meal don't end up on death row. Like your life is safe.
Yeah, I wonder if there's some horrible database that lists last meals, and I cannot imagine that coming up.
It's also hard to make a poached egg, so that would give me a shot at a longer life.
Yeah, this isn't right.
We have to delay the execution.
I'm sending it back.
Because the egg was completely cooked through, and that's not how you poach an egg. Yeah. Amazing. All right,
and
Paul.
Our final question is a fill-in-the-blank question for you. It's our sign-off, and it's to our audience, and it's advice, which is don't go to prison, but if you do go to prison, make sure that you blank.
Bring a pencil.
Great.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go to prison, but if you do go to prison, bring a pencil.
Bring a pencil. All right. Thank you to our guest, Jessalyn Gilsig. Thank you for being here with us, and we will see you next time.
I wish we had worked together. I look forward to it in the future.
Yes.
There's still time. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. Jessalyn, thank you especially. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks.
Bye. Prison Breaking with Sara and Paul is a Caliber Studio production. Your hosts have been friends, but not besties, Sarah Wayne Callies and Paul Adelstein. Our prison warden has been producer Ben Haber. Our head of Jailhouse Rock is Paul Adelstein, who made the music for this podcast. Keeping us slim and trim the prison yard has been sound designer and editor, the great Jeff Schmidt. Keeping us up to date on the outside world is production assistant Drew Austin. Our prison artist, logo, and brand designer is John Nunziato and Little Big Brands. Check them out at www.littlebigBrands.com. Follow us on Instagram at Prison Break Podcast. Email us at prisonbreaking@caliber-studio.com and call us at 401-3PBREAK. Prison Breaking with Sara and Paul has been a Caliber Studio production. Thank you for listening.